How much is stamp duty going to be costing you and your property purchase? Hi, I'm Kimberly Shapcotts, qualified chartered accountant, property investor and entrepreneur. Let's sit down and have a chat. There have been some increases in stamp duty since the budget that was held on the 30th of October 2024. Let's have a look at the numbers and see what the impact is moving into 2024, 2025 and moving forward, so that we can see exactly what we need to be using to calculate our stamp duty and find out what is going to be the cost to us as property investors for moving forward. This is obviously quite a significant cost to our property business, and we need to make sure we are on the ball and know exactly what we are going to be paying. If not just to check the figures that the solicitors come back with, but also so we can make sure when we're doing those calculations to find out what we should be offering on a property, we know exactly what the figures are. If you're using the same figures, please stop and please start watching, because now is going to be a time where things are shifting slightly, and we want to make sure you're still making the profits that you're expecting on your property investment purchases. Let's dive into the numbers. Firstly, we're going to look at one with a £150,000 purchase price. So up to £125,000, we are paying stamp duty at the 0% rate and the 5% increased stamp duty rate for additional properties. So this means for anything purchased before the 31st of March 2025, we'll be paying a total of £6,250 for the 5% on that bracket. We now need to look at the £125,000 up to the £150,000, which falls within our £250,000 bracket for the rates. Up to the 31st of March, the rate is 0% normally, 5% for the additional stamp duty rate, which means we have got a total of 5% to pay, which is £1,250 for the 5% at £25,000. This gives us a total stamp duty that will be payable of £7,500 when purchasing a property of £150,000 before the 31st of March 2025. Now, for after this date, our rates are exactly the same for 0%, 5%, so it's £6,250. It then changes, and it changes on the little bit from 125 to 150, where we have the new rate, which will be at 2%, the 5% additional rate, which gives us 7%, and 25,000 at 7% gives us a total of 1,750, which takes our total to 8,000, and this is an increase of 500 if purchased after the 1st of April 2025. Moving on to example 2, where we're going to have our property price of £200,000. So up to the first £125,000, we have a rate of 0% for the normal person, and we have a rate of 5% for the additional property, which therefore means we are going to be paying a sum total of £6,250 in stamp duty up to the 31st of March 2025. Now for the next proportion, we've got £125,000 up to £200,000 price rate, where up to the 31st of March 2025, the rate is 0% for the normal person and 5% for the investor, which means we've got £75,000 at the 5% rate, which gives us a sum total of £3,750 to give us a sum total for the whole stamp duty of £10,000 to pay over for this purchase. Now, after the 1st of April, these figures change slightly, and now the first £125,000 is still at £6,250 because we've got the 0% rate, the 5% additional, which gives us the £6,250. After the 1st of April, though, we are now up to our 2% additional rate, which means we also have the 5% to give us a rate of 7% on that 75,000, which now gives us a stamp duty figure that we need to pay of 5,250, which gives us a sum total of 11,500 that we need to pay, which is an increase of £1,500 if the property is purchased after the 1st of April. Moving on to a property value of 250,000 then. Up to the 125, we've got our 0% rate, our 5% rate, which gives us a total of 5% on our 125,000, which hopefully we're getting familiar with the number, is going to be 6,250. For the next 125,000 from 125 to 250, we will have 0% because up to this date there is no additional increase, and 5% to give us 5% at 125,000, which you may have guessed is an additional £6,250. This will give us a sum total of £12,500 that is therefore payable on a purchase of 250,000. Moving over to after the 1st of April 2025, and it doesn't change up to the 125 rate, we have 6,250 to pay. Over this amount, we are now onto the 2% rate for the 125 to 250, our additional 5%, which gives us a total of 7% to pay on our 125,000. This gives us a total of 8,750 to pay, which totals up to 15,000 stamp duty that we need to pay, which is an increase of 2,500 that we will have to pay on this property purchase. Our final example is of a property for 350,000, which up to our 125,000 rate will be 0% and 5% for additional property tax. This is 125 therefore at 5% to give us our 6,250. We then move on to our 125 to 250,000 rate, which up to the 31st of March is 0%. But we do have the additional 5% to pay, so it's 125,000 at 5% again to give us our 6,250. Now this then leaves our final 100,000, which is over the 250,000 rate. And at the 250 to 350,000 pounds, we have initially a 5% rate, and then we've got the additional 5% rate, so it actually gives us a payment of 10%. So we've now got 100,000 at 10% to give us 10,000 stamp duty that we will need to be paying. This gives us a sum total of 22,500 to pay on this property. Now, if we look at this after the 1st of April, our up to 125,000 rate will be our 6,250 as there are no changes. There are some changes up to 250 because we have the reintroduction of the 2% rate plus our 5% to give us 7%. So we're now doing the 125,000 at 7%, which comes to 8,750. Now our 250 to 350k is still the same. There's no increase in these rates apart from the 5%, which we've already discussed. So that gives us 10,000, which gives us an increased rate of stamp duty to pay in total of 25,000. So again, the increase here is 2,500 for that 125 to 250 rate, where we have got the additional stamp duty to be paying going forward, as well as the increase from the 3% to the 5%. To complete the picture, I just wanted to mention the commercial stamp duty rates, as these ones are a lot more attractive for a lot of investors due to the nature that they are lower. So just to reiterate what the rates are for the commercial stamp duty properties, 100 up to 150,000 is at 0%. From 150,000 to 250,000, the rate is at 2%. And then anything over 250,000 will be at a rate of 5%. And this is all the rates that are for commercial stamp duty. So if you have a commercial property or a mixed use property, the stamp duty rates are that little bit lower, which may be more attractive for some investors based on the increase in the residential rates. As you can see, the costs are just going up, and we just need to be very aware of exactly what we are paying depending what dates are going to be happening with different purchases, because we have got a few changes in dates which are having a few changes in the cost of our stamp duty. Hopefully today you've discovered exactly how the stamp duty is working and what the value is that you are going to be paying moving forward. If you have any questions, then please do leave a comment. Please like the video and do subscribe to the channel. And let's make tax less taxing. Let's make tax less taxing.